In this video, things get very serious. This won't be like any other video I have ever posted on YouTube. In fact, this is a very serious video about my experience with COVID-19, the virus, and how it affected my family. I almost took an indefinite break from making videos on this channel, which I've never done in 8 years. If there's a good thing about this video, I'm giving away 5 Minecraft keys, and all you have to do is like this video and subscribe to my channel. And by joining my Discord, you will have exclusive access to new packs, giveaways, and features in new videos. So let's get into my experience. I was never going to make this a video. One, because YouTube do not like videos talking about COVID-19 or the virus or any serious events taking place in the world. And 2, because this is a Minecraft channel where you guys are subscribed to check out my latest packs, clients, and anything I'm excited about. But I'm not exactly excited about this video. I'm gonna try my hardest to make this as happy and enjoyable as possible, despite the whole theme being COVID-19. So let's take this back to December 2020. It was a very weird time. COVID was at its peak in my country. Everything was pretty much on lockdown for Christmas, and when things couldn't seem much worse, well, they did. See, it was already a very weird year for me, 2020. In March, I had to move back home from university and finish university at home, and come December, we were in complete lockdown for Christmas. I'm sure many of you remember, and it was a very horrible time. If things couldn't get worse, well, they did. My granddad, someone, I've looked up to all my life, who lived opposite the road from me, was taken into hospital. It wasn't to do with COVID at the time, it was to do with something else, and I don't want to go too into detail because obviously it's my family, it's very private to me, and it's very personal. But essentially, he was in hospital over New Year's and Christmas, and he got the right treatment in hospital. He was supposed to come out. Now, at the start of the new year, he unfortunately caught COVID while in hospital, which is very upsetting and very frustrating, because we couldn't even go and see him, or be there to support him. I was able to call with him quite a lot, and it was nice to hear his voice. We were able to talk about everything we loved, football, just how things are going. And then on the 5th of January, he passed away. Obviously, this is very private to my family, very personal to me, and I'm not trying to make this an entirely sad video, but this was my first true encounter with COVID-19. See, while everything else was going on in the world, when this tragedy occurred in my family, it really put everything into perspective. See, I think what a lot of us don't realize, especially when we haven't personally interacted with COVID or had a situation, you don't really think the same way as someone who has lost somebody or someone who is truly going through a battle with COVID. So you can try and sympathize with people, but it's not quite the same thing. And from that moment onwards, I guess the world and the world we're living in, the situation, very differently. Now, following this situation, January was not an easy month for me. You guys were loving videos I was making, but at the time, I wasn't even trying to really make videos. In fact, I was very close to quitting videos for a while. However, making videos quickly became a distraction, as well as university. It was something to take my mind off of what was happening in real life, and it was kind of saving me in a sense. I love making videos. I have made videos for 7, almost 8 years now, and at the time, even though I felt like I shouldn't be making videos, I continued, and I'm happy I did, because it really distracted me, and it's what my granddad would have wanted, for me to finish university, continue with my career in what I enjoy doing. The feeling at the time was very alien to me. This was like the first ever time I had lost somebody in my immediate family, so it was very weird, and it was a horrible time in my life and for my family, and even to this day, I think most of us are still grieving. But let's fast forward now to August 2020. I love August. It might be my favorite month of the year, and that's not just because my birthday is on the 18th of August. It's just a great month. It's in the middle of summer. It couldn't be nicer outside. The weather's great. Football is on. It's just a very good time. Now, 2 weeks before my birthday, I decided to get a bunch of my friends together, rent an apartment in London, and go out for the night, which was ultimately the biggest mistake I have made in years. Now, at the time in London, there was a lot of COVID cases, and looking back, it wasn't the smartest idea. Again, restrictions had been lifted. We were actually able to go out and enjoy ourselves. I had already had my first vaccination, and I'm not going to talk about vaccinations in this video. It's entirely up to you if you want to get vaccinated. I think it's a good thing. I've had all 3 by now, and at the time in August, I had already had my first vaccination. So anyway, we decided to go out and enjoy ourselves. There was probably around 12 of us. It was a very good night. We were in a pretty small place where, you know, people were quite close to you, and obviously that doesn't help. Now, we had a great night. I wasn't feeling so great in the morning. I was actually feeling very rough, but nothing out of the ordinary. You know, I felt a little bit weird. I felt like I needed to get home. I got the train back home, and the next day I woke up feeling very weird. In fact, at the time I was like either feeling really hot, sweating, or completely cold, and I needed a fan that night just on my face to keep me cool. It was a very weird night. I don't think I got much sleep at all, but when I woke up the next day, I did not feel good. I felt very drained of energy. I had a blocked nose, my sinus. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I felt like I just had the flu 10 times worse. It just felt like a very intense flu. You know, I wasn't sick or anything like that, luckily. But I lost my vision partially, I think. I lost energy pretty easily. I just wasn't fit to do anything. I was spending a lot of time in bed. And that next day, obviously, I think my parents were off work, so they were able to kind of be at home, you know, monitor my situation. And I was taking these tests. I think they're called the lateral flow test, the ones that give you the quick results. And I was testing positive very, you know, substantially every time. And at that moment, when I started testing positive for COVID, I was actually pretty scared because obviously what had already happened earlier in that year was kind of building up, you know. And at the same time, I'm a pretty healthy person. I'm not a high risk person. But it's actually scary, you know, it's kind of like an unknown feeling of what's going to happen. And immediately, I lost my smell, I lost my taste. You know, there was no point of me eating food. Everything tasted like nothing. It just was a very weird time. And I remember the first 4 days, it's substantially getting worse. And by the 4th day, it was like at the peak. Like sleeping was like a blessing. Like actually being able to sleep at night. Because I physically just couldn't breathe. Like my nose was so blocked. My head felt so heavy. It just wasn't a nice feeling whatsoever. And things got from bad to worse when my mum actually caught COVID from me. She obviously was in my room a couple of times. I didn't completely quarantine myself from my family, although I tried to as best as I could. And that was worrying because she's kind of like a high risk, and that scared me more than anything at the time. You know, I was eventually getting better. Again, for the first 4 days, it felt like it was just getting worse, and it stayed the same. But I had symptoms for like basically 2 weeks. You know, it didn't fully go away for, I would say, at least 2 weeks. It was a very scary time. I remember still making videos that time. You can find some videos where I briefly said, hey, I have COVID-19, guys. So if I sound like I'm low energy or this video isn't like something I would normally post, then that was why. You know, it was a very weird time in my life. I was very worried. Now, time went on, of course. And like I said, after around 2 weeks of having COVID, I felt better. I felt like I was back to normal. However, something very common with people who get COVID-19 is that they lose either their smell or their taste while they have the virus, which, like I mentioned, I lost both my smell and my taste. However, to this day, I still have a loss of taste and a partial loss of smell. Like certain foods and certain drinks disgust me. For example, things like coffee, fast food, all taste the same to me now, and it's just disgusting. Like, it's so sad as well because, again, I'd like to consider myself a relatively healthy person, but I do like a takeaway, don't get me wrong, but every takeaway tastes the same, and it's certain foods, and this is something that is still with me today. You know, we're sitting here in February, this happened in August, I still have some symptoms of, you know, long COVID, or what you would describe as certain senses still being blocked from having COVID. Now, I would say the biggest problem with this is that I lost my taste of coffee, and I used to love coffee, don't get me wrong. Coffee is something I live off of for a very long time. Every morning I would grab a cup of coffee, and unfortunately, I hate the taste of coffee now. I drank one today. I kind of forced myself to. It was disgusting, but I don't ever know if I'm gonna get my smell or taste back, because at the moment it's like they're slowly coming back, but it's still pretty prominent that fast food, takeaways, coffee, certain foods just are revolting. Popcorn, it's just very random foods. I think poorly created foods that have like a lot of a certain substance in them are just so disgusting to me now. And it's really sad. It actually is, because this happens to a good percentage of people. I think they said like in the UK it's like 1 in 10 will actually have like this affect them, and I guess I'm just one of those unlucky 1 in 10. It truly does suck. So yeah, I got COVID, and some of the effects are still damaging my body, which really sucks. I'm hoping I get my taste and smell back in the future. I've been told there's certain things you can do to help improve it, but at the same time, I'm doing what I can, and I'm hoping for the best. I know this video was a little all over the place, and if you watched up until this point, I know this wasn't the most happy video ever, but it's an experience I genuinely wanted to share with you guys, because you might be able to relate to this. This might have happened to you, getting COVID. Let me know. Hope you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.